Ant-Man was an incredible addition to the MCU. Paul Rudd brings so much charisma to the character of Scott Lang, and the amazing visuals make the whole shrinking effect look insanely cool. It's a big gamble bringing a character that has these powers into the universe. I can only imagine how much thought went behind the visuals for this film. And wouldn't you know, it works. With Ant-Man now a core member of the Avengers and being a pivotal player in later movies like Endgame, it goes to show that even the most simplistic character, if treated right, can affect the universe in a massive way.
Ant-Man actually is one of the most dangerous Avengers.
An incredibly powerful character.
I can shrink, and that's actually really, really cool.
The road to getting Ant-Man to the big screen was quite messy. Originally, Ant-Man was planned for Phase 1 of the Marvel Universe, set to be one of the core Avengers in 2012. However, the process was tricky. The intended director was Edgar Wright, an incredible guy who's created lots of films I've really enjoyed, such as the Cornetto trilogy,
Have a nice cold pint and wait for all this to blow over.
and Baby Driver. But there were a lot of creative differences, mostly due to Marvel wanting to integrate the film into the larger universe. Edgar and co-writer Joe Cornish had a complete script before leaving, and most of that still went into the final film. Peyton Reed eventually took over the project, and the production went smoothly from then on. There's plenty of iterations of Ant-Man in the comics, from Hank Pym himself to Eric O'Grady, but in this film we get Scott Lang. This was the plan from the beginning, as Edgar Wright was actually the one who cast Paul Rudd as Scott Lang back when he was head of the project. For Paul Rudd it was quite a shock, as he thought that he wasn't the type of actor they would offer any of their parts to. But in my opinion, he nails it. Paul Rudd is quite a nuanced guy, managing to go from this happy-go-lucky demeanour to a serious and more darker performance. So it really fits the character of Scott Lang, as he's this resourceful criminal that's also very witty and humorous.
What, you haven't heard of me? No, you wouldn't have heard of me.
Even if the Ant-Man we get isn't Hank Pym, he still exists in the MCU, as the creator of the Pym particle and the Ant-Man suit. We do find out that Hank Pym in his early days was actually the original Ant-Man, alongside his wife Janet Van Dyne as the Wasp. I would have loved to see a Disney Plus series revolving around Hank Pym's time as Ant-Man, and the missions he would go on in the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. It would just be fascinating, don't you think? Well, Michael Douglas is the one to portray Hank Pym, and his performance is just as fascinating. You can see the pain in losing his wife and how he's closed himself off from not only being a superhero, but from his daughter too, leaving some unresolved issues.
I lost your mother. I didn't mean to lose you, too.
Hope Van Dyne is a nice addition. I feel like she grounds the movie with her less enthusiastic role. She's definitely not as happy-go-lucky as Scott, that's for sure, but I'd say that's due to her losing her mum and pretty much her dad at the same time, as he shut himself off from the outside world to focus on the quantum realm and bringing Janet back. Closer to the end of the movie, however, Hank includes Hope in his work and even lets her take the mantle of the Wasp, something that he's been holding back on in fear of losing her too. This makes her character just as important as Lang, and brings these two major comic book characters to life.
It's about damn time.
Now, for the villain of the movie we get Yellow Jacket. Once a protege of Hank Pym, Darren Cross later becomes the CEO of Pym Technologies, even rebranding it to Cross Technologies. He becomes obsessed trying to recreate the Pym particle, and even creates his own suit called the Yellow Jacket. He does try to sell this to some evil organizations, but eventually equips it himself. He's a really cool looking villain. Yes, it does follow the villain having the exact same powers of the protagonist trope, a cliche that Marvel was really popular for, but it makes sense and follows the simplistic style of this movie. Corey Stoll plays the evil mentor role perfectly, showing how bitter and egotistical his character is, later returning to play MODOK in Ant-Man Quantumania. Like I mentioned earlier, the visuals are fantastic, and it's not just the shrinking effect I'm on about, it's the colour palette. It really comes into its own here, and this is what I mean when I say this movie set the style of Phase 3. It's bright, but it's still grounded in reality, creating this perfect balance. Okay, so with the shrinking visuals, the first time we see it is in the bathtub. Seeing this on the big screen is incredible. It's just really immersive. It feels like you're shrinking too. They did this by using a combination of macro photography, motion capture, and CGI. The costumes we see here aren't as ugly and cartoonish as I'd have imagined them being. They fit in really well with the tone of the universe. Ant-Man has this motorbike suit look to it, with most of the design centered in the helmet. I don't really know how to describe it, to be honest. It's a lot chunkier than its predecessors, but that's mostly because it's only a prototype, so it's quite analog in places. Yellow Jacket's suit is far more complex, made more for military combat with these pincer type things on his back as weapons. There's also this honeycomb design on it that just fits this whole theme. So yeah, all in all, I'd say this film did a really good job with its visuals. So we're at the Easter egg segment now, and there's a lot of MCU connections here. During the heist scene, one of the organizations that tries to buy the Pym particle has a 10 rings tattoo visible. The sequence where Scott attempts to break into the new Avengers facility features Falcon, directly tying the film to Age of Ultron's ending and establishing the new compound. The flashback sequence features a young Howard Stark and Peggy Carter, maintaining continuity with the other MCU films and showing Hank Pym's history with S.H.I.E.L.D. The film introduces the Quantum Realm, which becomes crucial to the entire MCU, especially in Avengers Endgame. Mitchell Carson, who we also see in that flashback, is revealed to be a former Hydra agent, connecting to Captain America the Winter Soldier's revelation about Hydra's infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D. While we're at it, we may as well look at the trivia for this movie. Paul Rudd underwent a strict year-long training regimen to get in shape for the role, completely transforming his physique. Despite being considered a smaller Marvel film, Ant-Man grossed over $500 million worldwide. Michael Pena improvised many of his scenes with Paul Rudd, leading to the unique storytelling style of his character's flashback sequences.
This guy's got a big-ass safe just sitting in the basement, just chilling.
The Baskin-Robbins scene was inspired by Paul Rudd's real-life experience working at an ice cream shop before his acting career. The film's iconic toy train fight scene between Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket took over 2 months to execute. Ant-Man feels like a new take on a superhero story. It could be because of its unique style, fun concepts, or even its relatable characters, but if you look outside of the box, it's a very simple movie, using a very simple template that feels like a breath of fresh air, especially after watching Age of Ultron. So I'm going to give this movie an A. This was the first solo Marvel movie I watched in the cinemas, and I felt like it drew me into this universe just as much as Age of Ultron did. But if we're talking about the film on its own, then it still surprised me in its own fun, quirky way.